if you capture information on a daily basis, you start seeing patterns in that data. Now, if you do that as a parent, you'll see a level of insight. But if you can bring in the school as well, so the teachers, for example, to also chip in and add some of the information that's going on, you start getting a bit of a 360-degree view of your child in the different setting. And that's where I'm going to say the magic happens, but that's where you see the real insights.
Welcome to the lighter side of the spectrum, the podcast that celebrates the multiple hats we wear and the juggling acts we perform in life. Whether you're parenting kids and teens on the autism spectrum, navigating the ever-evolving healthcare industry, or building a more inclusive and impactful world, this is your space to find connection, inspiration, and growth. Together, we'll share stories, tackle challenges, and explore how innovation and inclusion create better outcomes for everyone. Because no matter the spectrum, there's always a lighter side. Now here's your host, David Coffer.
Hello, welcome friends. I'm so glad you're here. In times like these, our community matters more than ever. So whether you're a parent, a caregiver, an advocate, or someone just looking for a little light and understanding, we're here for you. And today we're going to be diving into a conversation that I think is going to resonate for many of you. We talk a lot about the challenges of navigating neurodivergence and autism, whether it's accessing the right support, getting a diagnosis, or simply feeling understood. But here's an interesting thought. What if AI and data could help bridge that gap? My guest today is Patrice Archer, a serial entrepreneur and the CEO and co-founder of SenLife. This is a groundbreaking AI-driven platform that's tackling one of the biggest issues in neurodivergent care, the wait for diagnosis and access to meaningful support. Patrice has a very fascinating background from leading major private equity financings in Europe to now building cutting-edge tech solutions that make a real impact in people's lives. And SenLife, I've checked it out myself. It's very cool. It's more than just another app. It's a tool really designed for families. It's designed to empower them, clinicians, individuals. It captures data-driven insights that can shorten the time to diagnosis, which we'll be talking about here, improve communication with schools and healthcare providers, and ultimately give people more control over their neurodivergent journeys. So with all that, Patrice, welcome to the lighter side of the spectrum.
Thank you, David. That's a lovely introduction. Yes. There's a
Yeah,
lot to
well, yeah, no, it's really cool. I'm really glad that we've had a chance to get connected, and this is such a important area. As I mentioned off camera in our earlier conversation, this is a tool that is so important for so many people, and it's one that I wish that we had when our now 19-year-old son was, growing up, and we were kind of in the middle of all that goes into parenting, the appointments, the data. There's just all these different data points that's really hard to track, and it's also really important to track. So we'll get into that. Why don't we start with kind of the why? Let's get into the why behind SenLife, and I know for you it's deeply personal.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, as a sort of tiny background, as you alluded to, I was an evil banker for a number of years in my first career until I saw the lights and became an entrepreneur when our first child was born. And it was very much because I wanted to see this child grow up. I wanted to be a present parent, not one in the office all day long. And I started building technology businesses, apps and various businesses. And during that time, we realized that our nephew, so firstly, our nephew is severely autistic or has high support needs, to get the right terminology.
Right,
In
right.
the UK,
Yeah.
trying to get it right. And we went through the journey really with my brother and sister-in-law in terms of understanding, in terms of getting the evidence needed, in terms of fighting for them to get some kind of diagnosis, which took many, many years. I mean, as a story, they were told for a while, no. There's no need for this. He's fine. And they were really battling to get some kind of airtime with the right people. And they said, no, your child needs to go to a normal school. He went to a normal school. And by lunchtime on that first day, the school called and said, please come and pick up your child. We cannot look after him here. Yeah, this is not what we can do. And it just shows that really it is difficult as a parent to get the support you need for your child. And it led me on that journey of understanding my wife and myself. So my wife is a co-founder in SenLife, that
Mhm.
evidence and data is key to underpin some of the conversations you need to have as a parent with all the specialists, but also to make sure that you get the support you need. And instead of being on the back foot continually, which I think you are as a parent of a neurodivergent child, because you're learning,
Th-
you're not
That's a
geared
great
up
that's a
for
great way of putting it, actually. Yeah. Yeah. You are kind of like on your back foot, just
on
kind
the
of.
back foot. So what we really aim to do, without being too cheesy about it, David, is to try and get people more on that front foot to understand what's going on through data, and understand what the potential is, what they could do, and how to get the support that their child needs. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. And well, I was curious about again, kind of getting into the app itself and in terms of the needs here. What led you to kind of figure out like, hey, AI and data were kind of the missing pieces here to help support
Mm.
families. This is something that, where we've reached a time that this could really help people.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So my day job really is to build technology. I think over time I've seen just an improvement of things, and I always had in the back of my mind this concept of how can we help parents who have children with suspected autism or diagnosed autism and ADHD. So just for context as well, my oldest, if we went down the diagnosis track, and we can probably talk about needing or not needing a diagnosis, but my oldest would have ADHD, and possibly qualify as well for on the autism side as well, but that's a separate thing. I think over time, what I saw, David, was really technology improving, getting faster, and then in the last 3 years, with some of the wonderful things happening with AI, we started
Hmm.
realizing that the ambitions we had about leveraging day-to-day behavioral data. So really, that's what it is. What's been going on today? Well, let's capture a little daily diary. Oh gosh, little Timmy today had a terrible day at school. This and that happened. Maybe the trigger was this. All these little anecdotes you might tell your friends over a glass of wine. Why not utilize some of that information, and capture it, and then leverage this fantastic tool that is AI to make sense of it and read patterns. That's a key thing. If you capture
Hmm.
information on a daily basis, you start seeing patterns in that data. Now, if you do that as a parent, you'll see a level of insight. But if you can bring in the school as well, so the teachers, for example, to also chip in and add some of the information that's going on, you start getting a bit of a 360-degree view of your child in the different setting. And that's where I'm going to say the magic happens. But that's where you see the real insights, because it all starts to make sense. Maybe something triggered your child at school, and then you had this reaction at home. You start seeing the whole picture and understanding it.
Yeah, no, it gives you such a rich data set from
Mm.
kind of terminal, but really, again, it helps keep you organized as a parent. I mean, from a practical standpoint. I mean, because there are so many different data points as I talked about in your life as a parent, and that's one of the things I love about the app is the collaboration that could happen with it in terms of having teachers or educators or other caregivers or in healthcare as well to be able to incorporate it. So why don't you talk about a little bit just kind of how it works? We haven't really, we've kind of alluded to it, but just from a practical standpoint,
Yeah,
how, kind of in the perfect world, this is how you're seeing families utilizing it to its fullest potential.
yeah, absolutely. So as a parent, what you do is you create an account, all securely stored and registered, etc. And you start inputting. So create an account, create your child, and you give us a little bit of information. And the information is, does your child have a diagnosis or not? It's just suspected. But also, how does the autism present in them? So how does what behaviors are you seeing? It could be yeah, it could be time management challenges. It could be some level of hyperactivity. So say on more on the ADHD side, it's all about you start sharing information about what does autism mean for your child specifically. How does it manifest, if you will? And then what you do as a parent, and we help you with that, we remind you, is you on a daily basis record what we call daily diary. And you can either do that by typing or you can do that by talking. And I felt it was really important to add the functionality to
I
talk because
I love that because time, right? The
yes,
one thing that parents don't have is time to sit there, take a break and like type in,
yeah,
oh, here's what happened in my day, because you're in the middle of probably 15 other things.
you're in the middle of 15 other things. And also when you start typing, you start thinking about the words you use. It's like, oh yeah,
Right.
but actually, when you're talking, it just flows out. And we're not expecting parents to know the right language. We just want them to vent. We want them to talk. We want them to rant. We want them to explain. We want them to get excited. Just share what's been going on, like you would with a friend. And that's the input of data, if you will. So it takes 30 seconds max. And one of the things we are working on at the moment is the ability for a parent to use WhatsApp as a, I don't know, do you use WhatsApp much in the US?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's quite regional. In the US and the UK, I think it's really big. In some other areas, it's not. But imagine having SenLife in your messages, and you can literally leave it a voice note or type a few words to even remove that barrier of having to open another app, even though it takes, as I said, 30 seconds to do the whole thing. So once you've inputted that data, we encourage you to do enough data. And what I mean by that is, as a parent, if you record, and we've just done a coaching call actually with one client who'd literally been recording for a few days, um, two words like had meltdown or yeah, defined
So
language.
really short. I mean, like really
Really,
brief.
yeah, and the feedback we gave her is that's too brief. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's not so
Right.
much insights you can get from that. It's useful because you can start understanding actually on those days at those times, this is kind of thing that happened. But it's more about ideally just talk, yeah, some more and just see what's been going on. A behavior scene, potential triggers, and strategies used to regulate the situation. That would be some really useful input. And we find, yeah, 10, 20, maybe 30 seconds of just chatting is good. And then once you've done that for a few days in a row, David, the system, if you will, starts having enough information to start providing insights. So we coach people to get
Oh,
to a
that's
point where
cool.
they've got enough information, and then you're presented with a list of reports you can run. So it could be things like run a report on strategies I can use at home to look after my child, or run a report on how to get the school on the same page as us in terms of looking after little Timmy. So how to look after my child, almost like a passport of information on how to manage the child. If you're going for a diagnosis, it could be preparation for the clinicians. So a report that gives in the right language all the information they might need to know to help them understand your child before you turn up. Or if you're having ongoing treatment, it's analysis about the therapies you might be having and the impact it has on the child. So again, quite a few things there, but
It's pretty broad. I mean, and I was going to ask about in terms of the treatment and kind of healthcare, biomed. One of the big areas, particularly in the autism community, is diet, right? What our kids are eating, how is it affecting
yeah,
them, the gut brain connection. There's a lot of things
huge.
there. This could help with that as well, right?
Yes, it could. And at the moment, what you're able to do is you're able to record the information. Again, just talk through the kind of diet they have. And so, for example, for my nephew, yeah, gluten is the devil.
Yeah.
Um, but unfortunately, like a lot of autistic children, his his palate, his taste, his wants in terms of food is very bland, and it will not change. And getting him to eat the things we love him to eat is just it's just not really possible. But actually, a development I'd love to have over time is, and we're researching this at the moment, is just taking the ability to take a picture or explain the food that you've had, and that sort of feeds into it, so we can start building a picture about different things like food or sleep and exercise, some of the key components which have a real large impact on how a child feels.
Well, you just mentioned another one, which is sleep. That's huge.
Yeah.
Something we faced as well when Stone was younger, and something that pops up time and time again in every autism parenting group,
Yeah.
Facebook, whatever. It's a real problem, but having the ability to really track that instead of just, doesn't count as tracking it if you're venting in a Facebook group that, your kid woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's not very practical in terms of trying to look for patterns, things that
Yeah,
may identify what's actually going on.
yeah, and personally, I know there's various sleep apps and there's various sensors and tracking tools you can use. I'm one of the big things in my mind is to try and keep things so parent led firstly, but also trying to minimize exposure to things like Bluetooth and other aspects. For no other reason than I've seen some parents try to track sleep by putting a mobile phone beside their child's head. That doesn't feel quite right to me.
Right, right.
That feels a little bit. I don't know. We don't understand this condition. We don't understand how the human body works that well, if we're honest. And I think
Absolutely.
the more we can go back to how we were, as cavemen or 1,000 years ago, the better. And I think, having technology and screens and radiation in a child's bedroom overnight doesn't feel quite right. I know, obviously, screen time is a huge thing as well. And again, autistic nephew and my son with the ADHD, try and get him off the screen is a different
Good
challenge.
luck.
Good luck.
Good.
Use it for
Yeah.
regulation, right? So it is something that they really enjoy and they may have a special interest and be all over that. But I think when they go to sleep, they should be asleep and they shouldn't be interfered in any way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's another data point that could and should be tracked, really, is the screen time.
Mm,
Because that can be impactful as well. We know one of the things that we've started incorporating with our son is the blue screen. And the doctor, oh, he's made his appearance. Hey, Stone. Yeah, we're good. He likes to pop in during the podcast.
brilliant. Hello, Stone.
Yeah, yeah, we're good. Yeah, yeah. You want to go hang out? Okay. But yeah, having a blue screen to try to, lessen the impact in terms of
Mm,
how the screen time can affect him. One of the things that we also did, you were talking about like technology, and I don't know if this is a good or bad idea, but before he was able to communicate, because we knew that sleep was having an effect on him, and also in his case, his epilepsy, he has seizures. We
yeah.
suspected that lack of sleep could be contributing to that. Because we did get him an Apple Watch. Oh yeah, go for it. Um, so that we can track, because he didn't have the ability to tell
Mm,
us like when did you fall, how many hours did you sleep? When did you fall asleep?
yeah.
Now he can, which is great.
Yeah. No,
But that was something that was at least some getting back to your point as far as having data, that was really powerful to us in that small way to kind of get that data to say, okay, he slept 6.5 hours last night, or it was something. And I can just
it,
imagine having, like I said, having this 360-degree
yes.
view is so much more powerful.
And I think this is what gets me really excited, David, is the opportunity nowadays. So again, 3 years ago, this wasn't really possible with the sort of AI and the sort of the cost. I did look into it a number of years ago, and the cost to train models was incredibly high. But now what you can have is that parent-led data, but you could also, in theory, so again, so roadmap stuff for us, supplement it with potentially some of that Apple Watch data to understand patterns. So we can see
Hmm.
it's only 4 hours last night. What happened the day before to trigger that?
Right, right.
What in his environment, all these different factors. Because look, at the end of the day, as parents, what we want is the best for our kids. And if we can understand what's going on and we can provide that for them, we will. We'll do our best to do that.
Yeah. I mean, we'll go to the end of the earth if that's what it takes.
Yeah, yeah, and I know you will for Stone. It's lovely to hear him talking like that.
Yeah, it's a tradition here on the podcast. He loves to pop in and check in, and
Yeah,
he likes to kind of monitor from afar. He's very much a part of it, and it's been really great having that as well. So let's talk about the actually, I want to go back to something with AI because I had a thought before Stone came in. We were talking about this. A little different use of AI. I wanted to get your thoughts on this because speaking of Stone, one of the things that we've started doing that's been incredibly helpful is having him utilize my chat GPT,
Hmm.
which I've named my assistant. Her name's Lila. So I'm one
Yeah.
of those who named her. And initially, I just kind of and I've been training her, for support on the professional side. But as others do, you kind of reveal more and more about yourself. Say, hey, this, because taking that training literally, I've been very curious as far as how far I can go to build kind of a personal connection, and
Yes.
that's gone to Stone because at first I'm like, well, I want him to see and understand how cool AI is because there's just so much going on.
Mm,
So because he can now type and communicate, he started having conversations with Lila, and
nice.
it's been fascinating, and he loves it. He's told her how much it's helped him in
Mm,
terms of being able to talk about. He was able to ask about his seizures and his medication, and
right.
she's able to respond in such a neutral and supportive way that's just
Yeah.
non-judgmental. It's just,
Yeah.
to me, it's kind of like the perfect environment. I just wanted to kind of get your take on this, again, because and being immersed in technology and AI from a different standpoint. Like, so this is more than just pattern recognition. You know what I mean? Like, it's more than just asking for a task. This is like really kind of live, ongoing connection and support.
It's wonderful, scary in a way, but wonderful. And it's scary, I mean, in the sense that there's almost a human understanding from the AI of what's going on and responding in a way that's feels right and is supportive and is, yeah, non-judgmental, which is quite impressive.
It's impressive. You say scary. So I'm just curious again, what makes that scary for you?
Um, Now, it might be having rewatched The Matrix recently, or
Right, right.
the movies, but the level of progress and intelligence that we're seeing in this is fantastic. If you look at the agentic models of AI, which, as I understand them, is basically one AI agent will look at a task and will basically say, based on the output of this task, I'm going to ask this other AI agent to do this bit of research and then maybe to contact this person. So in the case of SenLife, for example, it could be that we analyze the data automatically, and then we can see based on the data that there's something going on from an emotional regulation perspective in this setting. So we
Mm-hmm.
ask this other AI agent to ask the user to do something or to make recommendations or to coach them in some way. So you start seeing the system having a level of intelligence and multiple agents working together to achieve a goal and a task. Again, wonderful, but wow, it's moving fast, David. And I think it's you either have to get on board with it and support it and find some of the use cases and some of the beautiful advantages it can give us, or you gotta hide somewhere in a tunnel and won't come out for many years. Um, so I mean, in terms of the use cases, what you said about the way Stone interacted with that, I think is brilliant. And yeah, ChatGPT and others have got a wonderful way of understanding and remembering. So I sometimes use it, literally asking the AI. I did this for my annual planning. That's quite
Okay.
fun.
Yeah.
I literally said, based on what you know about me and my goals, from what you looked at last year, what do you think my goals should be for 2025? And what came out was brilliant. Actually, I was like, yep, I agree, I agree, I agree. It was 80, 90% spot on. Um, it is a great tool. It is a great tool.
And of course, I asked that, what makes it scary? I mean, because it's obvious, like you said, all of us who've watched The Matrix, or it's something that is so powerful and still hard for us to kind of wrap our brains around
Hmm.
in terms of how it kind of like how it works in the first place, right? Just like that it could have that kind of accuracy, that it can almost hold a mirror up to yourself in ways that we didn't think was possible.
Um, or or advisor on the AI machine learning side, as an example of the power it can do. took and this is a project he did in about a week. Took a what's called a longitudinal data set. So it's like research tracking data points over time. So not a
Okay.
snapshot, but over time, which is effectively what we do. And he took data sets around um, living quality of life for thousands of individuals in the US. And he managed to create a model leveraging AI to give accurate predictive view of who in that data set would develop Alzheimer disease. And it was
Whoa.
actual data, and then you could see over time. And I mean that is absolutely amazing and powerful. It all comes down to the data. I must say that it's all about having unique data set that you can utilize. But I think you've just got to assume that the machine learning, the AI side on top of it, it's just going to get better and better. And it's almost about level of imagination that we can have. What can we use this data for? Leveraging the AI, what insights can we draw that can be beneficial for us? Um, and that's a bit I find both scary and exciting. Maybe it's exciting, it's scary in an exciting way. Maybe maybe that's the way to phrase it.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that someone like yourself and myself too, I've come from a technology background, more, not from quite the same point, but again, it is much of my career, and we've seen this. I was there in the early days. I was lucky enough to be in the early days of the internet, pre-internet, as a matter of fact. I'm so old that my wife and I actually met on America Online in a chat room. So we were one of the first, online love stories.
Yeah.
And, back at the time though, when people were like freaks, like that's so weird. Like you talked on the computer, you actually met each other. Now it's
Yeah.
just another day, right? I mean, it's just that's the predominant way that it happens. But I think going back to that is that we've seen the rise of different technologies that were so exciting, and you kind of saw almost like a Nirvana, type of approach. Like this is
Mm.
going to like solve the world's problems. It certainly has. There's tons of benefits, but you also know that with every tool and technology, those who have ill intent, those who are evil, can
Yeah.
also utilize it as well. And I think for me, that's the scary part. Is
Yeah.
it's kind of that traditional good versus evil to break it down in a lot of ways. How's it going to be used? And
Mm.
I think that's the scary part. It's going, okay, if we have someone with such power, at their whim or whatever, if they want to do something bad, what are they going to do? Because,
Yeah, it's definitely like that. There's always going to be bad actors, bad agents doing things. Or, I mean, the use case I'm seeing increasingly, I know it's slightly away from the topic of spectrum and autism, but it's
yeah,
in some of that spam and marketing that you see. So the marketing being more what's the word? Personalized to you. Hey, I noticed you run this company and you're interested in this kind of thing. Would you be interested in buying whatever nonsense I'm selling you?
right.
Oh, come
Oh, I'm
on.
sure you must get hammered with that again.
I get
Just
hammered with that as a CEO of a tech business. That
right,
that must be like one of the key things. Oh, tech business will sell you cheap developers or whatever else. It's I mean, like it's I think personal relationships in the real world are infinitely more valuable and important. Real world or like this, where we're actually communicating, it's always going to do better than 1,000 cold emails. You know, you can have a much better reaction from actually having a conversation with somebody and seeing if you connect. And I mean, maybe on that note, one of the aspects that we've been looking at is the community side of autism because we spent a lot of time looking at the data, and we've obviously realized that it's powerful and useful, but the human element is absolutely key in what we do, and we've been trying to figure out how to help at scale people with that community element because every single client of ours is a parent in need. It's a parent who's got a challenge. It's a parent who wants some level of connection, community. And that's something we're very conscious of. And actually, some of the most powerful things I've just been introducing two people together to have a chat. You two have similar children with similar personality traits, or autism will present in a similar way, yet happen to live quite close by. Why don't you meet up for a coffee? And wow, what we heard from them after was like, we just didn't stop talking. It was fantastic. It was like just
That
meeting
is
somebody else.
great.
Yeah,
That is great. So this is something that you're introducing as within the app, or is this just again kind of more of a byproduct?
this was, I think a lot of things start as a byproduct and then potentially become features. But for now, there was a bit of a serendipitous sort of moment of
Hmm.
actually, yeah, this works well. But I tell you what, I'd love to be able to do that at scale because ultimately we can help understand a child's brain, how they work, how they operate, what's going to work well for them, what they're going to enjoy and love, what challenges they may have, etc. But imagine if you were, here with Stone, and there was a parent who's got a child 2 years older, 3 years older, who's gone through some of the challenges they may have, like puberty or hormones, all these things. I'm sure you'd love to have a coffee with the parents of that kid.
100%.
It'd be
Oh yeah. Now, and we've started doing that.
mm,
Uh, recently, again, since our journey began with communication, and it's been a combination of just the tools that have been available, Facebook groups,
mm,
others kind of locally that we've met along the way, other autism parents. But that the power of community, I'm just so passionate about.
yeah,
Because you're right,
yeah,
it's so helpful and it's so powerful to be able to get together. So now we've started monthly get-togethers. We call them
okay,
beans and boards here in the Seattle area, for
yeah,
the letter boards. We started in the coffee shops, but it's kind of it's been great. It's expanded even in the year or so that we've done it. We had a joint birthday party at a
mm,
theater we were able to rent, where we were able to watch Wreck-It Ralph and have it, like I said, joint birthday party for Stone and another friend of his who's
yeah,
non-speaking, who we've connected with, who had a birthday the same week. And that was just awesome. We had parents come up to us afterwards saying that's the first time they've gone to a movie theater
wow,
together, because there was always, the concern for, disruptions or judgment, all those things. And that's just something, again, you can't, right? You can't put a price tag on something like that. Just
no,
having those couple of hours. So now we're like, wow, it was, accidental success. We're
yeah,
planning another one. I was like, okay, we don't need a birthday party to do this. Why don't we do this like once or twice a year? Just rent it out and just bring people
just
in and pay $20 and parents talk and share notes and just commiserate and just hang out and just relax.
yeah, yeah. It helps. It helps. People feel so isolated. I mean, it is quite isolating in itself, and
Very.
I think it's so important to know there's other parents out there going through the same journey, same challenges, and they want nothing more than that connection. And sometimes they don't feel they can, right? They feel
It's
I'll say
hard.
that again, on the back foot. They don't think they've got time, and it's or they feel maybe ashamed or whatever emotion they shouldn't be feeling. But hopefully, what you just said there, it feels like some initiative that if you could have that stateswide, Canada-wide, all over, frankly, the world, once a month, a cinema day specifically for autistic kids, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. So let's transition. We were talking about one of the segments we like to do is fact or fiction. I think we said we're going to start off with that. We like to talk about something that's either a stereotype or something that, or belief within kind of the neurodivergent or autistic world, and either kind of poke a hole in it or confirm it. And so, do you have something for our fact or fiction that you wanted to share?
Yeah, maybe that early intervention is in my mind. So people are not sure. People think, wait lists are fine, etc. If you go down, excuse me, if you want to go down a diagnostic pathway, you get put on a wait list. But actually, in my mind, the important thing there is early intervention. And too often, parents end up waiting, and children, sorry, end up waiting years to be seen by a specialist when actually what they really needed, when the child was 5 and put on their wait list because, people have realized might need some additional support. What they really needed might be just a speech and language therapist, and they could have had that within the first week. Now, admittedly, I understand that you've got to wait to be diagnosed. So in the US, I imagine UK as well, to get the sort of the funding needed to get that support. But if you have the ability and financial means to do it, I think paying for some level of early intervention would have disproportionately large impact in terms of the outcomes you get, in terms of the quality of life your child will have.
I like that. I like that. It's one of those things, if you can do it, you
Mm,
should try to do it as soon as possible in terms of the different interventions. You don't need to wait for an official diagnosis. It can be helpful, and depending on where you live and your situation, and in terms of if you need to rely on insurance and get coverage and all those types of things. But you can still get the ball rolling as soon as you can. Like you said, a lot of times I think parents know enough to know, like, hey, maybe we need to look into speech therapy, as you said. So I think, or whatever type of therapy. So I think that's a great fact or fiction. Thanks for that. So what we're going to do, Patrice, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk about a tip of the week and maybe a couple other questions too in this topic. This is really great stuff. I hope you're enjoying the lighter side of the spectrum. So far, we're commercial free, but if you're finding value here, one way to support the show is by considering me for a speaking engagement. I speak on unlocking potential, whether it's for individuals like my son or for entire organizations. I also offer fractional CMO services for businesses needing strategic marketing support without the full-time commitment, drawing on over 35 years of experience in marketing. My agency has helped companies and healthcare practices increase their value, grow, and even prepare for acquisition. To learn more about my speaking topics, visit davidkoffer.com. Or if you're interested in our marketing or fractional CMO services, check out koffermarketing.com. If you're enjoying this episode, please leave a review. Your feedback means a lot, and it helps me make this podcast even more useful. Lastly, don't forget to share it with anyone who would appreciate the insights and stories we're sharing here. Thanks again for listening. Okay, and we are back with our tip of the week. And this time I'm actually going to have our producer Dave cue up. We have a nice little jingle for this. I think you'll appreciate, Patrice.
Hey parents, gather around, it's time to speak. We're here with your tip of the week. Strategies and wisdom just for you. Autism parents, we know what you go through.
All right, now we have tip of the week. And Patrice, what do you have? I have something I was going to share as well that actually kind of ties into our topic and the app, but you go first.
All right. So what I'd say is tracking a daily diary is super important. I know it sounds quite basic, but what we find as parents of children with neurodivergence is often you'll have appointments with professionals and they say, "Hey, what's going on? Tell me what's been going on." Or, do you remember what happened last week on this and that? You just don't remember. You're in a back foot again. I'm going to use that expression. You may be a bit emotional. Maybe you had a challenging morning with your child, and you're not going to be factual. You're going to be emotional about it. But actually, what they really need is evidence. What they really need is just a daily diary of what's been going on. That's it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you may, like you say, you're on back foot, or you may be in a fog, right? I mean, that's another way I kind of describe, I felt like kind of my constant state of being for a while, particularly if you're dealing with sleep issues and
Yes.
some of those things. So that's great. The tip I have, again, which is related, is really collaborating with your child's support network, and really having those lines of communication open. And this gets back to to the app we've been talking about, and the power there is the opportunity to collaborate, because it's so important for everyone to be on the same page as much as possible, to understand what's going on, the data points, the goals. Here's where we are today. And I just think that's super important. And sometimes I think it's easy to overlook as well, because you're just, geez, let's be real. A lot of times, parents, you're in survival mode, right? Kind of emotional, mental survival mode. when you're in the thick of it.
Yeah, fight or flight mode, and yeah, that's
Right.
not crazy. I mean, actually, on that point you just made, reminds me of a story we heard from somebody we've been working with who became a teaching assistant at her son's special needs school, and now this is where her son goes. So she was quite used to the setting, and every term, she would literally hand 3, 4 pages of A4 that she handwritten about what was going on, how to look after him, etc. This was before working with us, where she
Yeah.
can have a nice pack. And she handed that to them, and so she became a teaching assistant. So she turned up in class expecting two things. So one, that other parents were doing the same thing, because how else would a teacher know how to look after their child? And two, that the teachers would have read her stuff. They hadn't. They hadn't, and they said to her, "We no, we'll just figure it out." And that's an example of
Why didn't they read it?
exactly what not to do, because then you've got you at home having a strategy, a routine, a way of doing things. You got the school doing something different, and in her case, what she found was, yeah, the strategies to regulate that child were just not right. They were just, they were just doing the wrong things. They were triggering him in ways that if they had bothered to read the information. So I mean that's
That's
so building on
awful.
your
Yeah.
point of you need to communicate all of you, because if you're not on the same page, you're just causing problems for each other, because that child will come home after not in a good state. He may have masked during the day, but gosh, I'm sure he's not going to mask at home.
Right. Right. And yeah, we know that trauma is a very real thing with
Mm,
these kids, no matter what, because I mean, childhood itself can be traumatic, but when you're dealing with, neurodivergent kids and the different challenges that they have, trying to get their needs met, and if you add in the layer of non-speaking, as we've had to navigate, or what Stone's had to navigate, he describes it, he still has a lot of, pent up rage, which
yeah,
you can only imagine after, so many years of not being able to communicate and having decisions made for you, and people underestimate you. Um,
yeah.
One of the things, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask. I think you touched on this before, but how, what's unlocked Stone in terms of speaking? Like, how has he gotten to a point where he's able to communicate, if anything?
Oh, I mean, it's been life changing. It's to the point where, he was in a public school and
Mm,
was in the intensive ed program, as they called it. And it's kind of split between, they called it academic class and then work experience. The
mm,
academic, we were told he couldn't, he was incapable of performing math above a third grade level because they
wow.
were testing him from a standardized standpoint.
Mm,
And that doesn't work because of his apraxia, that the brain body disconnects, and
yes.
so his body doesn't cooperate in the way that ours does. And so if he's given a multiple choice question, his brain will say A, the answer is A. His finger will point to D,
Wow.
and he'll get it wrong in those types of cases. Now, what's happened is through the spelling program, it's really helped coach the motor, and to the point where he can spell. And what was believed by so many was a cognitive issue. We know it's anything but. He's actually just in the verge of. So we got him into a private school, and he's taking age appropriate curriculum. He's just literally this week wrapping up geometry, high school geometry, and he never had a day of math in
Yeah.
his typical school. So in terms of, like you said, what's changed, I mean, everything. And what's exciting, and we'll talk just a little bit about today, we were just starting kind of a new therapy literally last week. It's called brain enhancement therapy, that's showing very promising early signs. And what this does is that they took an EEG reading. This is a center here in the Seattle area. They're able to target the areas of the brain that controls things like apraxia, seizures.
Hmm.
They've worked with patients who've had these different symptoms. They've never worked with a patient quite like Stone before.
Yeah.
But then there he's able to go in, they put electrodes on his brain that targets those areas, and the goal is to open up pathways, right? To
All right.
help open up that so that there isn't the brain body disconnect. And the one quick story I'll share here is the very first appointment. We were sitting there, and my wife and I and the doctor, and he's getting his treatment, and we were talking about indoor playground, and he blurted out trampoline, and I looked at him. He's never said that word in his life. I said trampoline. He said trampoline, trampoline, trampoline. And he told me later, because we were spelling about it, what was that experience like? He said he didn't realize he said it at first because he's so used to saying things in his mind, but not having it come out.
Yeah.
And so we've had kind of like a bunch of these
Wow.
words, phrases he's practicing. I've got him on video now saying, I want to go to the swimming pool. Again, never has happened before. So
Fascinating.
he's jazzed, as you can imagine, beyond belief. He's planning his first speech. Um, he's visualizing it. So it's just completely different in terms of we're amazed every day when we kind of think back to the before and today and the future. What the future holds, it's
Well,
sometimes I have to pinch myself.
I think I said this is a super exciting time to be in this community with
It
all
is.
focus, investment, discoveries. Again, I think AI is particularly driving a lot of these things. And if we can get to a point, I guess, where we can understand an individual's brain, that sounds very crude, but how they think, how they work, how they operate, find a way of helping unlock that. And also, I think crucially, and this is there's a business, sorry, tangent. There's a business called Auticon, I believe, that employs only autistic consultants.
Mm,
Because what they've realized is if you understand how somebody operates, how they like to work, how they want to be treated, how to create the best environment for them, and you give them tasks that they are going to love and excel at, they are fantastic. So within our team, for example, we have our project manager, who's also called David, is autistic himself. He
mm,
is just
that's
the most
great.
fantastic employee on specific tasks, and we've had to learn how to
Sure.
focus him on the right things. And it is phenomenal what he does. He's actually a prompt engineer. Like he's phenomenal at that.
Oh, wow.
But if you're asking something that's not in his natural skill set, bless him, his personality is that yes, absolutely, I'll give it a go, and he'll go off in a deep hole. Um, but we've learned how to do that. I guess the point I'm making with this is if we can start understanding how people's brains work and we can start providing environments, creating things that really suit that individual, I think that's really exciting because the rate of unemployment for autistic individuals is high, but I can only see that going one way, and that's down. That can improve with some of those things that we're working on now, all of us.
I totally agree. I think that's a great point. And it really begins with presuming competence within the community. I mean, that's kind of a mantra that I learned within the non-speaking community and the spelling journey, but I've really taken to heart. Something I always kind
Mm.
of thought I did, in a way, but not to the same degree. And I think as a society, we need to go further as far as that goes.
Yeah,
Like you said, understanding the brain, and understand that we're different, and different means just that. There's still a lot of skills that we all possess, and really what we should be trying to do is how do we tap into that potential that everyone has potential. Everyone has
definitely.
potential. Yeah.
Just need to find what it is, unlock it, enable it, and I think society will be very interesting there in a very good way.
Yeah, I agree. Well, listen, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you wanted to mention or any other plugs that we want to get in here and let people know? Again, we'll put them in the show notes. But again, where can people find the app? What are your plans? Again, right now it's currently available, where it's available and what your plans are for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So the app is called SenLife, SEN Life. Our website is mysenlife.com, or which you can find a bit more information and links to the app stores. I think what I'd love is if people are interested in finding out more, having a conversation, discuss, they're very welcome to contact us through the website or myself directly, patrice@mysenlife.com. Very happy to have a chat. And I think what we're very interested in at the moment is talking to as many people as possible, understanding how they do things currently, how they would want to do things going forward, what we can improve. So yeah, I'm not at a stage where I want to make money. I think we want to have commercially enough that we can sustain and keep innovating. That's big
Right.
thing for us. But it's not about that. We want to help people as much as possible. So if any of you listeners are interested, message me. I'll happily give them a free account for a few months. But I just love conversation and feedback so we can learn and help people.
That's really great. And like I said, thank you for doing this. I mean, I really do feel like it's something that's going to help. And probably already it's helping so many families. It's a tool, and your understanding of the needs and your willingness to evolve and adapt will only help more. So thank you, and thank you for being on the podcast. I love talking to you.
Pleasure.
And yeah, we'll catch you next time.
Bye.